Okay, yo, what up? What up, what up, what up? UniVersus is going through some pretty big changes, everybody. We've had Attack on Titan is coming out here pretty soon, August 16th. Yep, August 16th. And with it are coming some pretty big changes to the game, including how symbols are going to be working moving forward. And so what I've done is I have put together a small presentation on understanding how symbols work in UniVersus when it comes to Attack on Titan. So what we're going to do is I want to talk about how symbols used to work. I want to talk about how symbols are changing. I want to give some deck building examples and then my thoughts on the changes at the very end. So first and foremost, what are symbols? Symbols in our game, whenever you look at a character or look at any card, you have three symbols down at the very bottom that represent the traits or the attributes of your character. So Mirko here has the, in order, air, death, and fire symbols. Air, death, fire. And so that is, she's high flying, she's really destructive, she's got a fierce, fiery personality. And so you can take and you can look at Mirko and go, I can see how she's representative of these three symbols. And cards in the game have a specific game mechanics that they want to use representing these three symbols, right? And so whenever you what's my next slide? Yes, see, we've got three symbols: air, death, and fire. And whenever you deck build, you have to pick one of these three symbols to deck build on, right? So for example, whenever I go and I play a Mirko deck, I have the air symbol that I build my deck on, which means that currently in UniVersus, whenever I deck build, every single card in my deck, no matter the IP, has to have the air symbol. This one has the air symbol. This one has the air symbol. Air symbol, air symbol. I am legally allowed to put only every card in my deck can have the air symbol. You can have cards with the death and fire symbol for Mirko, for example, but they have to have the air symbol. That is currently how deck building works. You pick one of your three symbols, the deck cards in your deck have to match. What's changing? Well, let me introduce you to attuned symbols. If you notice, the difference between the attuned symbols currently shown on screen and every symbol on a card that we have shown otherwise has been the difference between a circle and now a square or a squoval. We'll call it a square. Attuned symbols are squares and they work slightly differently when it comes to deck building. I'll jump in. If you take and you look at these Attack on Titan cards, we have here each of these an attack and an action and a foundation of death, fire, and now life. I messed up. This is supposed to be an air card, but it's a life card. C'est la vie. These are slightly different. I'll explain to them how they work in just a second. But here is what the attuned symbols look like. We go back here. We can see that these are circles. We can see these are squares. The big difference between resource symbols, which are the circles, and attuned symbols cards currently in the game is there are only, from what we have seen, one attuned symbol on these cards. Can cards have more than one attuned symbol? Attuned symbol? Yes. Can cards have both attuned symbols and resource symbols? Yes. But for every example that we have currently for Attack on Titan, it might change in Attack on Titan. It might change more. It might change. But like, this is the information I have. This is what I got. There's only one attuned symbol to activate. And you can see the difference here of circles versus squovels versus squares. Resource symbols at the top, attuned symbols at the bottom. And so now, whenever we take and we are deck building, we have our three symbols. We've got air, air, death, death, fire, fire, right? And I get to pick, again, one resource symbol to build on. For this example, we will pick air, but any card that has my character's resource symbol as an attunement symbol, I can take those cards and put them in my deck. So on the previous page we showed, I'm allowed to play any of these cards in my top row that have the air resource symbol in my deck. I've declared I'm playing an air deck. But I may also play any card on the bottom row because it has the fire attunement symbol, and I have the fire resource character on my fire resource on my character card, the death attunement symbol because I have death, or air because I have air. And so this is the big change, is attunement symbols are going to change up and mess around with how deck building is going to work moving forward. Attunement cards can go in any deck as long as your character has that resource symbol. The one thing I didn't really talk about here is just the infinity symbol. And all this says is that if this card has the infinity symbol, it can go in any deck. You're allowed to play it anywhere. It is not representative of all of them. It is not all, but none. You just get to put this because resource symbols are a deck building constraint, and sometimes a mechanics based thing of like, I will do this thing because it is a life card or an air card or whatever. You'll be able to do the thing. Will side characters still be allowed since the secondary character might not match the first? Carlito, that's information that at this time we don't know. I would assume that you would have to have all of your cards in your deck match the attunement symbol. So if I am, you ready? If I am playing as Mirko 2 and I am playing to make my example work, I have to utilize this. I'm playing in the retro format. I could play as Mirko 2 and I could sideboard in to Bakugo 1 because they share all three symbols if my deck has all three of these, right? This could, as Disaster says, it makes citing characters harder. If I am playing the air symbol and I only have air attuned cards and death attuned cards, could I sideboard into a character that does not have fire? Yes, I believe so. But at this exact second in time, it's not confirmed. So what are my final thoughts on... That's how attunements works, right? It is just a deck building constraint of the more options when it comes to deck building. So my final thoughts are as follows. I think that this is a really interesting way to take deck building. I think this opens up some cards to be slightly less powerful because it widens how many different characters get to utilize it, but it widens how many characters get to utilize it because no matter what symbol you're playing your character on, this card is allowed to be in here. With that said, I think if the game is nothing but if we get rid of the ability to have resource symbols on regular cards, I think if that goes away completely, I think it is a bad idea for the game. I think that it really it widens it at the moment, and as soon as resource symbols on cards in your main deck are gone, it very much narrows the deck building choices. You just take the best 60 cards under your three symbols, you slam them in a deck, and there's no choices. Because I can play Mirko 2 and it does not necessarily matter the choices that I make because I just get to play every card on my symbols. But if I have restraints, when I have restrictions when it comes to what resource symbol I play inside my deck, and my attunement symbols support these decisions, I'm much more inclined for the deck building space to be cool. So I think that the idea of attunement symbols is very cool, and especially as a new player, right? As a new player, I can look at them and say, hey, when you are building your first deck, don't worry about this at all. Just take any card that has these squabbles and slam them in your deck. You're allowed to legally play all of them. Just learn how to play the game that way and deck building that way. And then whenever you graduate up, now we can move on to more complex deck building of choosing a resource symbol and then introducing the attuned symbols afterwards. So again, just like we talked about earlier in the night with the idea of the Blitz keyword being a teaching tool, I like this deck building constraint of I start learning the deck build by just using attunement symbols, and I graduate once I become an intermediate or advanced players in putting resource symbols into my deck and accenting my deck with attunement symbols. But that's it. That is attunement symbols. That's how they work. If you guys have any questions about how they work, come and join the conversation, whether it be in the comments down below or in the description. You can find a link to both my Discord where you can ask questions, or you can join me over on Twitch, twitch.tv/TamCardwell, and ask the questions live, which I'm going to do for the next 5 minutes here over on Twitch. With that said, you guys, thank you much for watching. And as always, I wish you well.